Hello, and welcome back to the SolidCAM mill turn training videos. In the previous videos, we created our CAM project. We made definitions for machine tool, coordinate system, stock, and target, and when we accepted out of that last dialog box, it broke them out into their own little containers or sections, so I have easy access to these areas should I need to update or change anything after the initial CAM project was created. What it also did is it built me a setup section down here in the operations tree. So from the setup section itself, if I were to double click on this to open it, it will show me information regarding the part mounting relative to the main spindle and the part mounting relative to the sub spindle. Inside of this dialog box, you're going to see this little button here. This is what's called the machine preview button. And you're going to see this periodically throughout the software in key locations that will show you a preview of what we have established so far in our project. So right now we're going to see my part is just kind of hanging out here in the center of the main spindle because I don't have a fixture or a chuck mounted to this. So from the setup section itself, I can gain access to what's called our toolkit. Our toolkit is more than just a tool library or a tool database. It's actually multiple libraries that all work together. So inside of here I've got a component library, I've got an assembly of component library, and I've got a machine-specific library. Now, in future videos, at some point in time, you could have your own fixture libraries established for all the various types of work holding that you would have in your shop. And you can take these and then mount them to the appropriate location. So if this Kitagawa chuck I wanted to mount, I could just take and drag this and mount this to my machine. The purpose of this video, however, is to talk about the basic fixtures. So I'm going to go back up to the fixtures up at the top, and on a lathe, we got some choices here that we can select from. I can either pick a jaw or like a 5C collet type system. In this case, I want to put a 3-jaw chuck on the main spindle. I can right-click on the chuck itself, and I can mount it to the main spindle. Alternatively, I like to just drag and drop, so I can take this and drag and drop it to the location on the machine where I want to put it, so in this case, on the main spindle. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you dimensions that you can key in for the size and the scope of the fixture that you're working on. So if you didn't have 3D models of your fixture, you could at least represent it on your machine with what you had actually physically in your shop. Here I can give it dimensions for the diameter of the chuck itself. So maybe this is 185 millimeters in diameter, and you can see how that preview has updated itself. You will also have parameters for the jaws themselves. So for instance here, the thickness of the jaw, 15 millimeter, maybe this is going to be 20 millimeters. Instead, again, you enter the information that you know about the jaws that you're working with. Give it the dimensions for the height and the width of the jaw itself, as well as the landings on those faces as well. The clamping dimension is the static dimension of the clamp position when we mount it to the machine. So if I were to kind of open it up there a little bit and accept out, what you're going to see is that the machine preview has updated to include the chuck now into it. So how is the part mounted relative to that chuck? Again, I can just kind of use the scroll wheel on my mouse, and I can select the location where I want to grab a hold of this part from. So I'm going to kind of wheel this to a location. In this case, I think 105 millimeters looks pretty good for what we're doing. I can go ahead and position that on the main spindle. The thing we're looking for here on the part mounting is the Mac 1. Okay, so the main spindle, position 1. And then once I have that established, I can go ahead and close the jaws down onto the stock. And when I hit that button, it will close the jaws down into the stock. So now I've got a more real representation of what this part looks like mounted in our machine. Once I have the spindle or the jaw on the main spindle itself, I can go ahead and save that. And then I can deal with the back side or the back spindle as well. So again, I can kind of focus on the back side of the spindle. Here's how the part is positioned on the back side of the machine itself, and how is the part mounted relative to it. So again, I'm going to go into my toolkit, drag and drop a chuck to the back spindle. Now, depending on how your axes are arranged on your machine, and I'm speaking of the Z-axis here, do the Z-axis face the same direction? Do they both face in? This jaw or this chuck might be mounted in the wrong orientation to this machine. So on the back side, you can see how, because my axes are pointed in the same direction, it wants to mount it in the similar direction. I can go ahead and take that chuck and flip it over 180 degrees on the backside for the particulars of this setup. And then how is the part mounted relative to it? And here we're going to be aligned to MAC 2, or the second coordinate system for backside of operations. So again, just for visuals, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scroll this open a little bit. And I'm going to position this in a location of where I want to grab this part. And this we're going to pull up later on when we are dealing with part transfers and what we call machine coordinate systems. But this is a kind of a key location to remember, because those machine control operations will reference this exact location that we have set. Once I have that defined, I can go ahead and close the jaws down onto the part itself and get it positioned in the orientation that I like for the particulars of the subside. I can kind of go back over to right now the workpiece is mounted in the sub spindle. On the way out of the setup, I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's mounted back in the main spindle itself. And that way, when we're out the door, we'll be starting our setup and our projects on the main spindle when we start adding tool paths. I appreciate you watching this video. In the next videos, we'll be actually putting turning tool paths down, as well as milling tool paths for the particular machining traits of this part. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again on the next recording.